Whether you were born thousands of years ago or in the 21st century, we're surrounded by markers of time and how it influences pretty much everything we do, say, and write. For instance, from Aztec calendar stones to water clocks across the ancient world, people have left behind all kinds of cultural and physical evidence that time mattered to them. And in ancient Greek mythology, there were two different deities associated with the idea of time that still influence the world of rhetoric and composition: Chronos and Kairos. Chronos was officially called the god of time and was usually represented as a pretty fearsome dude. He's described by the poet Orpheus as a three-headed serpent, where the heads were those of a man, a bull, and a lion. And along with the primordial goddess Ananke, who was the personification of necessity or inevitability, Greek mythology held that Chronos set the whole universe in motion, which makes him a pretty important part of the overall pantheon of Greek gods. The other deity associated with time was Kairos, a constantly moving messenger god who's often shown holding scales balanced on a sharp edge and wings on his feet. He's portrayed as fleeting and represents opportunity or the best possible moment. So for the Greeks, time is a multifaceted concept. And these ideas have staying power, since most of us still have to address the relentless march of chronological time and how to figure out the best moment for something, especially when we're writing or communicating more broadly. Today, we're taking the opportunity to discuss how time is an important context to account for in our writing. Hi, I'm Dr. Emily Zarka, and this is Study Hall Rhetoric and Composition. As we've discussed in other episodes, context includes all the factors that influence how our writing is formed, shaped, and received. We've talked extensively about the where of context in other episodes, and today we're looking at the when of our writing and why it matters. I'm situated in a particular moment in time when I'm writing, and so is my audience. That affects how my writing is received and interpreted, and also how I create it. For instance, time is always a constraint in writing. How long our writing projects will take, what time the project is supposed to be ready for the audience, and even what time of day we've absorbed enough caffeine and are ready to write all matter a lot to our eventual success. It's easy to let time's impact on our writing fade into the background, but thinking it through in depth is one of the best ways to make an effective writing plan and address the influence and pressure time has on our audience. Conveniently, writing scholars talk about two different ways that time adds context to our writing or influences how it's formed and received using Chronos and Kairos. Ancient Greek thought about how we speak and write still holds a major influence on our modern understanding of communication, as we've talked about before. When we're talking about time that's measurable in some way, which we can think of as clock time, that's the Chronos of our writing. And often the Chronos part of our context show us how time can be both a tool and a constraint. Sometimes a certain amount of time is a characteristic of our writing, like if we're writing a speech for a time slot of 10 minutes and we'll get cut off if we go too far over. Other times, Chronos is about deadlines. No matter how good our essay will be when we write it today, if it was due yesterday, you're getting a point deduction. So for many of us, Chronos can feel limiting or like an enemy, especially if we get lost in moments or something takes longer than we expected. But a great move as a writer is to recognize our own relationship with Chronos and plan around it. If we've been procrastinators in the past and that's been stressful, we can start trying out strategies to write earlier and estimate how long our writing process will take. I'm not a procrastinator, but only because I force myself to stay hyper-organized. It's really stressful when I know I have student papers to grade, plus book research to do, plus scripts to write for my YouTube channel Monstrum. So I carve out time slots for each task in my calendar and make daily to-do lists. On the other side of the pantheon, while writing is certainly impacted by the Chronos-related concerns of deadlines, procrastination, and time limits, we also need to consider the right time or opportunity for a piece of writing, or Kairos. We can't measure Kairos in minutes or seconds, and it's not like there's a universal list of the right times to do things. Instead, Kairos is a way of thinking about time and evaluating how it intersects with a combination of other context factors, like where we are, who our audience is, and what moments are available to us. Even really basic messages are impacted by Kairos, because the timing of the message can completely change whether our message achieves its goals or not. Like, let's say a teen wants to stay out later than curfew to go to a concert with friends, but they're not sure that their parent will go for it. They can send the text message asking permission in a couple different moments. If the text arrives while the parent is handling the teen's laundry after seeing their messy room and hearing about them skipping a class at school, that parent is not exactly primed to say yes. On the other hand, if the text arrives right after the teen does the parent a favor and has been showing a great attitude about helping around the home, it could go a different way. Most opportune or chaotic moments aren't this clear-cut, and that's part of the reason why Kairos is quite subjective. But in order to get better at finding chaotic moments and using Kairos in our writing, we can reflect on past experiences and what factors impacted that moment in time. Maybe we'll learn something that helps us pick better moments next time. That's just one way to use Kairos and thinking about the time part of context to help us improve our writing. But there are 3 specific times when both Chronos and Kairos are particularly helpful to think through. First, there's initiation or the beginning of a project. Whether we consciously think about it or not, Chronos factors, like the project characteristics or deadlines, constrain when we start and how much time we budget for writing. So to become better writers, we want to evaluate how much work and time a writing task is going to take us to cycle through the whole writing process. And we probably want to build in time that we can use to circle back to steps if we realize we could use a little extra time. Now, usually a writing project isn't the only thing we have to get done. We have lives, after all. There are other writing or school or work assignments to get done, people to care for, and of course, birds to watch. So looking at our schedules, we might also be able to factor in some Kairos elements. For example, we might decide to do our invention and planning during our 2 best thinking hours in the morning, right after waking up, because we've seen that's when we can reliably get creative juices flowing. Or we might find ways to be time efficient, like planning to do our revision and editing when we were already supposed to be in the library with a friend, because we can ask them to peer review our work. So at the start or initiation of a project, planning is the best way to make Chronos and Kairos work for us. Another good time to evaluate Chronos factors in particular is when we're approaching a complete text. We talk elsewhere about how no texts are perfect, only finished, and timing can be a factor in how we decide that something is done. For instance, let's say we don't love every detail of our project, but we've completed all the steps of the writing process and included all the requirements. If we've still got a week till the deadline, we can go ahead and drill down on what we still want to change. Chronos is on our side because we started early. But if we need to hand that paper in within 30 minutes, well, the clock has spoken. Better to submit something than nothing. And finally, beyond Chronos and deadlines, knowing when we should deliver a project is very impacted by Kairos, especially if we're trying to prompt someone to take action or persuade them of something. If we get to choose to find the right chaotic moment to deliver a project or have an audience read our writing, we want to think about how audiences are already primed to respond based on what else is going on at the time. Like if we write political campaign flyers, when we choose to send the flyer depends on what recent news about the candidates has come up and how soon the election is. If that flyer arrives after Election Day, it's going to have absolutely no impact. Let's look at how paying attention to both the importance of making time for writing and delivering it at the right moment is key. Hector realizes in cold, snowy January that he wants to corral his friend group to do a post-college beach trip this summer. He knows that he faces some serious time challenges to get this done. If he proposes it too early, his particular crew will be vaguely supportive, but not get down to planning. If he proposes it too late, they'll have all made commitments for the summer. Plus, he's got his own stuff going on and may forget to get this project rolling at all. He goes into his online calendar and blocks out 2 hours in March. I know, so far away, to put together a beach plan. He thinks that it'll be the perfect time to make a specific plan that everyone can work around. When March rolls around, he's reminded and takes those hours to write an email that makes saying yes as easy as possible. He's already selected a beach, picked a couple of affordable lodging options, and offered to be the driver. And he suggested 4 different weekends in case anyone already has weekend commitments. And for Hector, the timing worked out great because he used Chronos and Kairos to his advantage. He budgeted time to really write out a beach trip idea and combined it with finding an opportune time to broach the subject. He didn't bring it up too early or too late. His friends love his idea. They figure out the one perfect weekend and everyone commits, which is another miracle. Hector then makes sure that he takes the time to really follow through, booking a place to stay. He and his friends are thrilled to be beach bound and to get to anticipate the trip for a few more weeks of college, another nice part of excellent time management. That one email might seem like a small writing task, but many of our writing projects are like this, embedded in much bigger communications and actions. Taking time into account in our writing is often connected with managing time in so many other ways to get stuff done with the people around us. Timing is part of our writing's overall context. And like other context factors, it impacts our writing and makes us more successful if we pay attention to it. So as we write, we can use our own self-knowledge about how long it takes us to do the writing process, as well as the particulars of the project to both allocate plenty of time and use that time well. If we're just starting to understand our own timing, we can take some notes as we write. That info can help us next time. Having the right tools and information is a big part of what makes writing enjoyable. And just like Kairos with his foot wings, time flies when we're having fun. Thanks for watching Study Hall Rhetoric and Composition, which is part of the Study Hall Project, a partnership between ASU and Crash Course. If you liked this video and want to keep learning with us, be sure to subscribe. You can learn more about Study Hall in the videos produced by Crash Course and ASU in the links in the description. See you next time.